Kevin Cleary here with a knife video, and today I'm looking at a blade, and I want to share a blade with you that's a little different and probably one that I feel like if I didn't own, I wouldn't really be able to consider myself a knife enthusiast. This is a knife that is both a modern classic as well as a piece of history. It takes its name from the fact that when US GIs fighting overseas saw the Swiss soldiers and saw what they were carrying, they couldn't pronounce the German name for it, so they called it the Swiss Army knife. This is the Victorinox Swiss Champ. Victorinox and Wenger both claim to make official Swiss Army knives, and guess what? Both are telling the truth. In the 1890s, the Swiss government contracted the company that became Victorinox to create their knife for them. But within a couple of years of that, they also commissioned the company that would become Wenger to do the same thing. And they shared that contract for many, many years until Victorinox actually bought out Wenger. So now, whatever one you buy, it doesn't matter because both companies are actually owned by Victorinox. So it's 6 of one, half dozen the other. Either way, no matter how far back you go, even if you have a really old one, whether it's a Wenger or a Victorinox, it is an official Swiss Army knife. Now, there are a lot of others that are not official Swiss Army knives, and I'm going to say that this by way of warning. If you're going to buy one of these, one, it's not that expensive to buy a Victorinox model. And so don't bother with the imitations because they are generally horrible. Some of the worst knives I've seen have been knockoffs of the Swiss Army knife. So what can I say about this? You know, this is an interesting thing for a number of reasons. First, it was essentially the first multi-tool. And many people would argue, there are people who are so devoted to these that they're just, you know, absolute fanboys, and that's fine. But a lot of people would argue that this is still the best multi-tool. And, you know, whatever you want to say about that, we certainly have to give credit where credit is due. Very few multi-tools that I know of, maybe you know of some that are just fantastic, but I don't know of any multi-tools that fit in this size of package that have as many functions as this does. Now I'm going to have to use some assistance in this video. This thing is $4 on Amazon. I added it to an order one time so I could get above the free shipping, $25. I'm going to recommend anyone who does anything ever put a pry tool on their keychain. It's so handy. And I've used this thing so often. I'm going to use it a little bit today because the detent on this thing is pretty stiff, and so I'm going to have to get some assistance in taking some of the tools out. But I first want to talk a little bit about size and weight because although this thing is fairly compact, I'm going to compare it. Here's the Gerber multi-tool, the one that, there we go, comes out that way. So here's the Gerber multi-tool. One of the fairly well-known ones. It's almost like what the Canadian military carries. It's just a production version of that. You can see that this knife is smaller in pretty well all dimensions. However, it weighs about the same, and the weight on this is quite a lot. It's about 6.5 ounces. So if it's a really windy day and you need an anchor to make sure that you don't get carried off into space, this is a good thing to put in your pocket. Otherwise, I would recommend you carry it somewhere else. I keep this in my backpack, and it's always close at hand, but it's not right in my pocket where it would literally be like a boat anchor tied around your waist. It is very heavy. That said, the size is very reasonable. If you can hear that, it's because I've got the windows open. It does make the lighting a little better for making videos, but every once in a while you hear a loud noise. Anyway, let's get back to this knife. The size and weight on this is 1.25 inches in width. It's about 1 inch in, I don't know what in this dimension, and 1.25 inches in this dimension. So it's slightly wider, which is obvious just by looking at it, and it's 4.5 inches long. So it's a fairly small package. It certainly fits in your pocket. I just feel like it's really, really heavy for me to carry around. Consider that today I'm carrying my Benchmade Contigo, which is a huge knife, And this thing weighs a considerable amount more than it does, to where it's actually very noticeable, even if you just hold them in your hands side by side in just a non-scientific way. So that's size and weight. This is very, very dense. And you can imagine, look at how much steel is there, right? So Victorinox lists this as having 33 tools. However, there are some, what would you say, they're stretching that a little bit. For example, they list this little key ring as a tool. I'm not sure that qualifies. They count the, let's see if I can find it. There's a fish scaler here that has inches and centimeters, and so they count this as 1, 2, 3, 4 tools. This is the hook disgorger. You've got metric measuring on this side, you've got imperial measuring on this side, and then you've got fish descaler. So they count that as 4 tools, just to kind of give you an indication. I'm not going to try to delineate every single tool on here. I am going to try to open each one up for you, and that's why I've got the little pry tool to show you what you're getting when you buy this. One of the comments I want to make from the start is that unlike most other multi-tools that I've used, that I've had, the tools that are on this thing, they all work pretty well, within reason. I'm going to give you one example. Here's the pliers. Obviously, those pliers are going to not fit bolts past a certain size. So you say, yeah, the pliers work, but what do you got there? About 1/4 of an inch and not much more than that. If you open it really wide, you can see there is a little wire cutter that opens up there. But again, the diameter of a wire that you're going to fit in there is small. So it's only going to work on fairly small sized wire, maybe if you're fixing some fine piece of equipment or something like that. So all the tools work, but within some limitations, okay? Don't take this in your pocket and say, I'm going to go, change the transmission on my car, because you're not going to be able to do that. But if you have a minor breakdown and you need to just tighten a screw or loosen a screw or change a wire or something like that, yeah, there you go. There's the tool for the job. If you got to do a little repair around a campsite or when you're on a trip or whatever, very handy to have with you. So let's try to get into at least some of the tools. Be prepared. It's 7:40 now. I'm going to go through these tools. This will take a little bit of time. That's just, there's no way. There's 28 tools here. There's no way I can do this quickly. I'll try to be as fast as I can. If you don't want to watch every single one, then what I can tell you right now is this is handy. The tools are all listed on Swiss Army, on the Victorinox website, and you can go read it there. I'm going to say the tools work. I've tried almost all of them, and I've used them fairly hard and had no problems. So if you're just looking for, is this thing a piece of junk or is it pretty good? It's pretty good. If you want to know the tools that are on this thing, keep watching and let's start going through them. So start off with the blades. There are 2 blades, a small one and a big one. There you go. They're not a super hard steel. The best I could come up with is that they're similar in properties to a 420 HC, not Buck's special hardening properties. So you're probably landing between 54 and 56 on the Rockwell hardness. That means it's pretty soft. However, this is a full flat grind, and it's a fairly fine, fairly thin piece of steel, which means you're going to get a very, very fine, sharp edge on there, and it's going to slice very nicely through most materials. I would say this is in no way a knife that you'd want to have with you for any kind of defensive capacity, but outside of that, it should work really well. Here we have the nail file, nail cleaner, metal saw, and metal file, and I have used this a lot, and it's extremely effective. Metal saw here, 2 files, a fine for your nails and a harsher one that I've used both on wood and metal. They do work. This is very functional and very effective. Here's that old fish scaler I told you about. There's measuring on both sides. Scissors. These scissors are extremely good. They're very sharp, and they're actually better than most of the scissors I've seen on most multi-tools. Pliers. Now here's the difference between this tool and most modern multi-tools. A lot of modern multi-tools are built around the pliers, so you're getting a bigger set of pliers than this. And if you need that, then you probably should go with your Leatherman or Gerber or whatever. If you're more into something compact, then this is a pretty handy thing. And it does work. Again, it's well built. The tolerances are tight. And that, I can say that as a common feature of everything on this knife. There you've got a, I don't know if I can get this to work. No, I can't. You do have a magnifying glass, and if you're outside in the sun, it will give you enough heat to get a small fire going if that was a need. Phillips head screwdriver. One of the things I've got to say about this, probably all of you have had this experience. You have a multi-tool with a screwdriver on it, and when you go to use the screwdriver, the steel is so soft that the screwdriver bends and twists, and you can't get it to do much of anything. This steel is reasonably good. It doesn't respond a way that I've seen many screwdrivers on multi-tools respond. You've got a very good can opener and a small flathead slot screwdriver there. On this side, you've got a bottle opener, a larger screwdriver. Let's see, there you go. Bottle opener, larger screwdriver, and a wire stripper. There is this keychain, and right by it, there's a pair of tweezers. The keychain I've thought about taking off. Since I keep this in a bag, it doesn't bother me that much. I know some people are bothered by it, and so they've removed it. Flip this over to the other side, and you've got a few more tools inserted into the handle. One is a ballpoint pen. The other is a toothpick. And since we're talking about tools that are inserted in the handle, when you take the corkscrew out, underneath the corkscrew, right in there behind my finger, I'll just pull it out, there is a pin. And I'll put it right back in there. You can see it slides right into the handle under that corkscrew. Inside the corkscrew, there is a mini screwdriver for repairing glasses. And all of these things that you've seen me take out, the pen and the toothpick and all of that, you can get replacements from Victorinox. Next we have an awl, which I can't get my hands on. There we go. There's an awl, and if you're sewing leather, I don't know how often you're going to be sewing leather, but if you ever really needed to, it does have a hole there so you can actually push it through, and your pushing thread through. This tool is one of those ones that I can see it having some usefulness, but I've never used it. The idea is that you can carry bags or something, and you end up using the knife as a handle, and your bags hook onto here, and you can carry, maybe a bunch of papers that have been wrapped in a strap, so you hook the straps with that. Maybe a hay bale, something like that, where you can hook the ropes into there and carry it, now having the knife serve as a handle instead. And I could see there being some usefulness to that, but not so much for my purposes. Very fine screwdriver, or medium size, I guess, not as fine as the glasses one. And finally, a small chisel. So that's a whole lot of usability in a very small package. I didn't outline all of the uses that they count for every one of those tools, and I wasn't keeping track of numbers. So if you really are that concerned about it, you can go back and count everything that I've pulled out, or you can simply go to the website where there's a full list. I'll put a link in the description box of this video. But what I'm going to say about all of these tools is that they all work. The knives are very sharp. The fit and finish and the tolerances are very tight, so that when you go to use one of these tools, I have never had it where, let's give a perfect example that often happens with multi-tools. Who hasn't had this happen where you go to squeeze something with the screwdriver, or with the pliers, but that bolt that holds the pliers together is a little bit loose, and so you get sort of that twisting motion with your with your pliers. I can tell you, it's happened to me with this set of Gerber pliers. You squeeze something really hard, or you go to twist something and you get sort of this torsional type action. Those kinds of things are not very common with this. You got to think these guys have been in business for well over 100 years. They're probably the single most popular pocket knife that you can find. You know, on this channel and on other knife channels, we talk about how popular Spydercos are and Benchmades are and SOG and all these other companies. And you know, really, in terms of worldwide sales, probably none of them hold a candle to Victorinox. So you got to give some credit to a company that has put something together with that kind of longevity, with that kind of popularity. And one of the first knives that I was given, not the very first, the second knife that I was given was a small Swiss Army knife that maybe had 2 or 3 blades on it. And I carried that for a long time as a kid. You know, I was in grade school at the time. I was quite young, and my uncle gave it to me. So probably this is a knife that for most of us has a lot of memories attached to it, has a lot of nostalgia attached to it. So there you go. That's my little discussion about the Victorinox Swiss Champ. As I said, there are a number of models. The Champ is the one that has most of the tools on it, and so that's the one I definitely went for. Maybe you don't need all those tools. Maybe you want something smaller. Maybe you want something to slip in your pocket and carry all the time. I would say this is probably not the best for that. I would take, you know, a knife that had half as much stuff and therefore half as much weight, you know, get it down to 3-4 ounces and you'd be very comfortable with a decent tool. I'll leave that up to your discretion. For now, though, what I can say is this is a very impressive bit of engineering. You know, you've got a bunch of tools in here. Surprisingly, unlike almost any multi-tool you probably have ever tried or I have, most of the tools work the way they're supposed to work. And that in itself is quite a feat in a package this small. As I said, though, it's just a little heavy for everyday carry. If you put this thing in your front pocket, you're going to really, really notice it. So overall, very good multi-tool. Probably outshined many other competitors in a lot of different areas. And, you know, we've got to give credit for that, no question. I would say that if you buy one of these, you will not be disappointed. And if you are disappointed, my experience has been, and what I've heard from others as well, is that Victorinox is pretty good in terms of customer service and warranty and that kind of stuff. So there you go, YouTube. That's my take on the Victorinox Swiss Champ. Sorry about the less than stellar screen use this time. It was I had to focus as much on getting the tools out as I did on talking into the camera, but hopefully it wasn't too annoying for you. Thanks for watching and talk to you later.